The moment I realized my marriage was a lie. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My husband kissed me goodbye, and then his other wife texted me. That's the sentence that keeps replaying in my head, like a glitchy recording I can't shut off. I'm Emma, 31, high school English teacher, allegedly the stable one of my family. For 8 years, people have called Ethan and me relationship goals. We have the curated Instagram grid, the DIY wedding arch, the honeymoon in Puerto Rico, the cozy gray sectional couch with throw pillows I found on clearance. From the outside, my life looks boring in the safest way possible. Predictable, solid, permanent. 5 hours before that text came in, I was standing at our kitchen counter, packing Ethan's lunch for his overnight conference. I tucked in his favorite protein bar, kissed his cheek, and joked, "Don't let the hotel minibar seduce you." He laughed, squeezed my waist, told me I worried too much. Then he walked out the door with his navy suitcase and my complete trust. At 9:47 p.m., my phone buzzed while I was grading essays on the couch. It was a number I didn't recognize, with a local area code. No name, no context, just a photo loading slowly on my crappy Wi-Fi, one pixelated line at a time. When it finally sharpened, I saw Ethan at a restaurant I'd never been to, leaning across a candlelit table, fingers intertwined with a woman I'd never met. Underneath the photo was one line. "You deserve to know where your husband spends his conferences." His wife. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to break out. For a second, I honestly thought it was some sick marketing spam, or a scam, or a wrong number. Then I noticed the timestamp on the receipt in the corner of the photo and realized it matched the exact moment Ethan texted me. Boring keynote. Miss you. Going to bed soon. The room tilted so hard I had to put the essays down. I stared at the screen and understood, in one nauseating instant, that my whole marriage might be theater. And the worst part was knowing the final act hadn't even started yet. People always assume you can spot a liar by some dramatic giveaway, like a twitching eye or a suspicious pause. But Ethan's lies were wrapped in warmth and dad jokes. And babe, you know I'd never hurt you. I grew up watching my parents' marriage slowly rust. My dad drank away promotions. My mom pretended everything was fine as long as the curtains matched. I swore I'd never repeat her performance of smiling while drowning. When Ethan walked into my life at 23, he felt like the opposite of all that. We met at my friend Jade's birthday at this overcrowded bar where the music was too loud and the floors were mysteriously sticky. Ethan bought me a ginger ale instead of a drink, because I'd mentioned I had to drive home. "Designated drivers are the real heroes," he said, grinning. I mistook basic decency for rare virtue, and I fell fast, almost embarrassingly, stupidly fast. He was attentive, thoughtful, the guy who remembered my students' names and cooked on Sundays. When we got married, he gave this speech about how he'd waited his whole life for someone who made ordinary days feel like celebrations. Everyone cried. Even my brother Leo, who trusts people about as far as he can throw them. My students wrote us little notes. My mom whispered that I'd broken the family curse. Looking back, the red flags were all there, fluttering quietly. The way Ethan corrected me in public, always with a joke that made other people laugh and me shrink. The way he'd say, "Relax, Em, you're being dramatic," whenever I brought up something that hurt me. 2 weeks before the conference, he forgot our dinner with Leo after promising he'd be there, then laughed when I confronted him. "You know how busy I am," he said, kissing my forehead. "Don't turn this into a thing, okay?" I swallowed the sting and told myself every marriage has little disappointments, that good wives don't keep score. That night, scraping his untouched dinner into the trash, I felt something quietly break. After the text with the photo, my first instinct was denial, like my brain threw up an error message and refused to process what my eyes saw. I reread the message at least 10 times. "You deserve to know where your husband spends his conferences." His wife. I zoomed in on the picture, looking for proof it was old or edited. Ethan's haircut was recent, shorter on the sides. The watch on his wrist was the one I'd given him for our 5th anniversary, engraved on the back with still my favorite plot twist. The restaurant was someplace dim and intimate, all dark wood and chandeliers. I checked the timestamp on the screen, 9:42 p.m. The same minute he'd texted me, "Heading to bed. Long day, love you." My chest felt tight, like someone was cinching a belt around my ribs. I called Jade because she's the one person who never sugarcoats anything. "Send me the picture," she said immediately. A second later, my phone buzzed again. "Emma, that's him," she whispered. "That's definitely Ethan. And that woman is not his cousin or co-worker." "I'm sure there's some explanation," I heard myself say, my voice tinny and distant. "Maybe it's a client dinner, or, babe, he's holding her hand across a candle," she cut in. "Unless you teach hospitality roleplay now, this is not work." I hung up and went into our shared office, my hands shaking so hard I could barely type. I opened our banking app, the one we'd agreed we would both use for transparency. The last charge on the joint card was a hotel authorization, not the conference center he'd mentioned, but a boutique place across town I'd always joked was out of our league. The room description included romance package and a note about rose petals and champagne. My cursor hovered over the transaction as my heartbeat roared in my ears. I scrolled back through the past statements, eyes skimming over groceries and utilities, looking for anything that suddenly felt like a lie wearing numbers. My entire body went cold when I counted 3 identical hotel charges staring back at me. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay on our side of the bed, staring at the ceiling and watching shadows from passing cars crawl up the walls. At 6 a.m., Ethan texted a selfie from a generic conference room backdrop, lanyard around his neck, fluorescent lights washing him out. "Morning, Mrs. E," the message read. "Panels all day? How's my favorite teacher?" My fingers shook as I typed. "Looks busy. Hope you got some rest." Like nothing in my world had shifted 30 degrees off its axis. When he came home the next evening, suitcase thudding against the hallway wall, I felt like I was meeting a stranger wearing my husband's face. He smelled faintly of hotel soap and something floral. "Conference was brutal," he groaned, dropping onto the couch. "You have no idea how lucky you are to work with teenagers instead of middle-aged sales reps." I studied him, trying to find any crack in his performance. "You must be exhausted," I said carefully. "You sure you didn't sneak out for a fun night?" He chuckled, eyes on his phone. "Trust me, the wildest thing I did was steal extra muffins from the breakfast buffet." "Why, jealous?" Something snapped. "Ethan, we need to talk about the charges on the joint card," I said. "The hotel downtown." He finally looked up, annoyance flashing across his face before he pasted on a smile. "Oh, that," he said lightly. "Client dinner that ran late. They put us up overnight. You know how my company is about appearances." "I thought the conference was at the airport hotel," I said. "You sent me a picture with the banner." He shrugged. "There were multiple events, Em. Seriously, you're connecting dots that aren't there. You know you can get paranoid." The word sat between us like something rotten and familiar, a script he'd used before. I opened my mouth to argue, but he pulled me into a hug, burying my face in his shirt, and whispered, "Please don't start a fight over receipts, okay?" That was the first time I wondered if I was losing my mind. If you'd looked at our social media during those weeks, you would have seen nothing but brunch photos and couple selfies, Ethan's arm around my waist like a brand-name guarantee. Offline, things shifted by inches. Ethan started coming home later, claiming traffic or unexpected drinks after client meetings. When I asked if we could plan a weekend away together, just us, he sighed like I'd asked him to climb Everest. "We just did Puerto Rico 3 years ago," he said. "You know how tight things are right now? Be realistic, Em." "Tight how?" I asked. "We have savings." I thought. He rolled his eyes. "You don't understand how business works. It's cute, honestly, but it stresses me out when you nitpick every dollar." That word again, cute. Like my concerns were a puppy chewing on his shoe. When I brought it up to Jade over coffee, she stirred her latte so aggressively foam sloshed over the rim. "Emma, that's not how someone talks to an equal partner," she said. "He sounds like he's trying to keep you small." Leo was blunter. "I don't like him talking money circles around you," he said, arms crossed. "You used to track every scholarship dollar in college. Since when are you bad with numbers?" I defended Ethan out of reflex. "He's just under pressure," I said. "His job is intense right now. He's carrying a lot." "Are you allowed to carry anything?" Leo asked quietly. The question lodged under my ribs and stayed there, sharp and insistent, like a splinter I couldn't quite reach. Around the same time, Ethan started making small comments about my job. "You're lucky," he'd say. "Tenure, summers off, guaranteed paycheck. Some of us live in the real world." He jokingly suggested I quit and help him with his side projects, said we could move closer to his office and cut out the distractions of my family and friends, as if people who loved me were clutter to be boxed up. I laughed the suggestion away in front of him, making some joke about needing my chaotic teenagers. But alone in bed, I realized my lifelines were quietly disappearing. The concrete clue came on a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day that should have been forgettable, the kind that usually blurs into a stack of graded essays and lukewarm coffee. I was at school, proctoring a makeup exam, scrolling through my personal email to stay awake. Buried between newsletter spam and a coupon for half-price candles was a notification from a bank I didn't recognize. Statement ready for EMMA and Ethan Cole, Platinum Rewards. I almost deleted it as junk, then froze when I saw our full names spelled correctly in the subject line. We only had accounts with one bank, the one with the Navy logo and terrible app. This email was from a completely different institution across town. My pulse picked up, my vision tunneled in that weird, faraway way it does before you faint. I clicked the message. Inside was a polite, sterile note. Your monthly statement is now available. Ending balance, $18 for $37.62. Minimum payment due, $2,300. Due date, April 28th. Negative $18,000. My stomach dropped so hard I had to grip the edge of the desk. I hadn't authorized any new accounts. Every big financial decision was supposedly a joint conversation. I clicked the View Statement button, hands sweating. Up popped pages of transactions I'd never seen before. Luxury hotel bars, high-end restaurants, designer boutiques, ride shares at 2 a.m. across town. On the second page, my heart stopped at a line item. Sunset Suites, romance package, $689.00. The same hotel, the same phrasing as our joint card, the same sick pattern looping like a bad joke. For a second, I convinced myself it had to be identity theft. Someone must have stolen Ethan's information, opened a card, gone wild. That would almost have been a relief. Then I noticed the address on the account. Our apartment, our unit number, Ethan's cell listed as the primary contact and recovery number, highlighted neatly in blue and impossible to misread. I stared at the balance, realizing this card was our secret bomb. That evening, I didn't confront Ethan. I watched him eat the pasta I made, laugh at some meme on his phone, kiss my cheek like he hadn't just dragged us $18,000 into the red behind my back. Instead, I started collecting breadcrumbs. While he showered, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a legal pad, writing down dates and amounts from the secret statement. Sunset Suites, Verona Bistro, Lux Car Service. Charges clustered around the same weekdays he'd been working late or traveling. I pulled up our shared calendar, compared his business trips to the spending, and felt my stomach twist when they lined up like coordinates on a map I'd never been given. The next day, I called the bank number on the statement from my classroom prep period. Hi, this is Emma Cole, I said, forcing my voice steady. I'm calling about our Platinum Rewards account. I just want to confirm some details. Of course, Mrs. Cole, the rep chirped. Can you verify the last 4 digits of the primary cardholder's social? She read them out loud. They matched Ethan's. Is there an authorized user listed? I asked, hoping my name would magically appear and make all of this less sinister. No, ma'am, she said. Just Ethan Cole as the primary. But the mailing address is shared. I see both names on file there. Is there an issue? I hung up quickly, mumbling something about a misunderstanding, then sat very still in the empty classroom, listening to the hum of the fluorescent lights and the faint shouts from the gym. My lesson plans for the afternoon blurred. I taught on autopilot, smiling and gesturing while my brain replayed numbers. Later, Jade came over with takeout under the pretense of trying a new Thai place. Once Ethan went back to the office, we spread receipts and screenshots across the coffee table like evidence in a crime show, our chopsticks untouched and cooling beside the soy sauce packets. She leaned back, eyes narrowed, and told me this pattern was not random coincidence. This isn't just cheating vibes stuff, Jade said, tapping the hotel line with her nail. This is a system. Look at the dates. We arranged the transactions by month. Every second Wednesday, Verona Bistro. Every third Friday, Sunset Suites. Same rideshare company back to the same neighborhood on the edge of downtown. Nobody is that consistent on accident, Jade muttered. He's got a routine. The word routine made me feel sick. I thought about my own routines, packing his lunches, grating at the kitchen table, texting him good night when he was on the road. While I was rehearsing stability, he was rehearsing betrayal. What if it's clients? I said weakly. Or some networking thing his company. Jade gave me a look. Then why hide the card? Why keep you off the account? Why romance packages? She pulled up the photo from the unknown number and zoomed in on the corner. And who sends this from a burner if they're not trying to blow something up? I stared at the woman in the photo, her manicured hand wrapped around Ethan's. She looked mid-30s, dark hair, expensive blazer. Not the cliché other woman my brain wanted to turn her into, just a person. Someone who might actually believe she was the only wife. Reverse image search, Jade said suddenly. She snapped a screenshot, opened a browser, and dropped the picture into the bar like she'd done this before. After a few beats, a social media profile popped up. Same woman, same dark hair, laughing in a series of photos. In her bio, marketing director, dog mom, fiancé to the best man alive, Ethan Cole. My vision went white at the edges. There they were, smiling on some hiking trail, her hand on his chest, engagement ring catching the sun. Caption, can't wait to be Mrs. Cole forever. A thought I'd been shoving away broke the surface. What if he told her I'm the roommate? I whispered. Or the crazy ex. What if he's got some whole story where I'm the villain? Jade was quiet for a beat. Then she said, very softly, he literally proposed to her while married to you. I sat there shaking, finally seeing that my marriage might be his cover story. The next morning, I woke up with my decision sitting in my chest like a stone. I needed proof, not just horror movie screenshots and gut feelings. I took the day off work, claiming a migraine. Once Ethan left for the office, I opened a new email account and started quietly downloading everything. Bank statements, screenshots of the fiancé's profile, copies of the photos she'd sent me. I printed them and slid them into a plain manila folder like I was building a case file on my own life. A life I suddenly didn't recognize from the outside, like it belonged to some stranger. Leo came over on his lunch break, still in his mechanic's jumpsuit, smelling like engine oil and coffee. I hadn't planned to tell him yet, but the folder was sitting on the table like a confession. What's going on? He asked, eyes narrowing. You look like you're about to either cry or commit arson. I handed him the folder. He flipped through the pages in silence, jaw tightening. That's definitely Ethan, he said finally. And that's definitely not a networking dinner. I don't know what to do, I said. If I confront him now, he'll spin it, make me feel crazy. But if I wait, if I keep pretending, I feel like I'm helping him lie to both of us. Leo tapped the bank statement. Step 1, you separate your money, he said. Today, new account in just your name, move your direct deposit. Step 2, you talk to someone who isn't emotionally tangled in this. A lawyer, a therapist, someone whose job is reality. The idea of involving strangers felt humiliating, like airing out dirty laundry that still smelled like our shared detergent and his cologne. Is that overreacting? I whispered. What if I'm blowing things up that could, I don't know, be fixed? Leo looked up, eyes soft. He's building a second life with your last name and your credit, he said. The only thing you'd be blowing up is his favorite illusion. I nodded slowly, realizing in silence that protecting myself might destroy everything. I made an appointment with a therapist first, because the idea of a lawyer made everything feel too final, too sharp around the edges. Dr. Harris's office was in a converted old house, all plants and soft lamps and shelves of books with titles about boundaries and trauma. I sat on the couch, twisting a tissue in my hands, while she listened to me spill 6 years of marriage in 45 minutes. The conference, the hotel, the secret card, the fiancé. You're describing a pattern of deceit, not a single mistake, she said gently. Right now, your brain is trying to protect you by minimizing it. That's normal. But your safety, emotional, financial, possibly physical, has to be the priority. What if I confront him and he denies everything? I asked. What if he makes me feel crazy again, and I believe him because I want to? That's why you gather your support first, she said. People who can remind you of the facts when the emotions get loud. And you plan for your own safety before you ever give him a chance to react. That night, Ethan suggested we have dinner with his parents. They've been asking about you, he said, twining our fingers like nothing was wrong. Mom's worried you're working too hard. Come show them you're still alive. At the restaurant, he played the attentive husband like a well-rehearsed, award-winning role. He refilled my water, tucked a stray hair behind my ear, bragged about my students' test scores. His mother cooed about grandbabies someday. And Ethan squeezed my knee under the table. Soon, he said, we're talking about timelines. The word hit me like a slap. Timelines. As in, the parallel one he was building, the calendar I wasn't invited to see, the future where I was probably a footnote written in invisible ink. Halfway through dessert, his phone lit up beside my wine glass with a preview from an unsaved number, and his eyes flicked down before he could stop himself. His phone flashed fiancé on the screen, and my throat closed. I didn't say anything at the restaurant. I smiled, finished my cheesecake, thanked his parents, and let Ethan hold my hand in the parking lot while my mind raced 3 steps ahead, mapping exits and worst-case scenarios. The next morning, after a mostly sleepless night, I called a lawyer. Lawyer Patel's office was all glass and clean lines, a sharp contrast to Dr. Harris's plants and pillows. I slid the manila folder across the table, palms slick. She flipped through the documents with a practiced calm that made me feel both exposed and oddly reassured. This is not a gray area, Emma, she said finally. You have a legal marriage certificate and substantial evidence that your husband is engaged to another woman while using marital funds to support that relationship. That's fraud, potentially bigamous conduct, certainly grounds for divorce. The word divorce made my stomach clench. I don't know if I'm ready for that, I said. I need the line to stop. I need to stop feeling insane. Then the first step is control, she said. You quietly secure your finances and living situation. You decide how and when the confrontation happens, not him. Do you have somewhere safe to go if he reacts badly? Leo, I said immediately. And my friend Jade. They know. Saying it out loud made the whole situation feel more real, like a file that had been officially opened, stamped with some invisible case number. She nodded. Good. If you choose to confront, I'd recommend doing it in a public but contained setting or with a third party present, therapist, mediator, even me if necessary. Somewhere you won't be isolated. That night, I told Ethan Dr. Harris wanted to schedule a couples session to work on our communication. He hesitated, then agreed, probably confident he could charm his way through 50 minutes with a stranger and come out looking like the reasonable one. Later, when I texted Jade and Leo the date and time, I realized that session wasn't therapy, it was my detonation plan. The day of the session, I felt like I was walking into an execution I'd scheduled for myself. Ethan drove us to Dr. Harris's office with one hand on the wheel and one on my knee. I'm proud of us for doing this, he said. Most couples just let stuff fester. We're communicating like adults. I stared out the window, watching trees smear by. Yeah, I said. Communication. In the waiting room, my heart hammered against my ribs. Jade had my location, Leo had his phone nearby, Patel knew the time. I had copies of everything in my bag, plus a backup flash drive in my jacket pocket because paranoia had become my new religion. Dr. Harris welcomed us in, calm as ever. We sat on the couch, Ethan immediately leaning back like he owned the room. So, he said cheerfully, Emma thinks we need a referee. I think we need clarity, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Dr. Harris glanced between us. Emma, why don't you start by sharing what brought you here today? I took a breath and slid the manila folder onto the coffee table. I'd like to walk through a few things, I said, and I need you to listen without interrupting. Ethan laughed, an incredulous puff of air. Is this a performance review? I opened the folder. First, the hotel charges. Then the photo of him at Verona Bistro, fingers laced with the woman's. Then the screenshots of the fiancé profile, the engagement photos, the caption about becoming Mrs. Cole. Finally, the secret credit card statement with our shared address and his lonely name at the top. Color drained from his face so fast it was like someone pulled a plug. For the first time, he didn't have a joke ready. This is taken out of context, he stammered. You don't understand how complicated things have been at work. People Photoshop, they. Ethan, Dr. Harris said quietly. These are financial records and public posts. Context won't change dates. He looked at her, then at me, and I watched a dozen excuses die behind his eyes before he even spoke. I met his eyes and finally said the words that would burn our life down. I know about her, I said. I know about the secret card, the hotel, the engagement photos. I know you've been planning a second wedding while still married to me. The room went very still. Ethan's face crumpled into something I'd never seen before, a twisted mix of outrage and panic. You've been spying on me, he snapped. Going through my accounts, my phone? Do you have any idea how violating that is? I actually laughed, a short, broken sound. You proposed to another woman, I said. With my last name. With our money. He started talking fast, words tumbling over each other. It's not like that. You're exaggerating. Things with us have been dead for years. I was going to tell you. She doesn't know the whole story. I was trying to figure out how to leave without hurting you. So you kept both? I interrupted. You kept the wife and the fiancé and the hotel loyalty points. Dr. Harris held up a hand. Ethan, I need you to understand that what Emma is describing is not a misunderstanding, she said. It's a pattern of deception and financial abuse. He glared at her like she'd taken my side in a game. You don't know what it's like being the only one making real money, he spat. Emma hides in her little classroom while I deal with real pressure. Of course, she doesn't get nuance. There it was, the contempt stripped bare, finally saying the quiet part out loud. By the end of the session, he'd cycled through denial, rage, tears, and a brief, chilling calm where he promised we could fix this if I just stayed off social media and didn't embarrass him in front of family. When I didn't immediately agree, his mouth flattened into a thin line I'd only ever seen him use on waiters. At home, he slammed cabinets and stomped through the apartment, muttering about betrayal and ruined the thin, fragile calm. I locked myself in the bedroom, texted Leo a single word, done, and forwarded everything to Patel. I left knowing my marriage was over. The paperwork was inevitable. The weeks after the session were a blur of logistics and grief. Ethan moved into the guest room temporarily, as if we were just taking a break after a fight about chores. He oscillated between trying to charm me, making coffee, leaving little notes about memories, and cold fury when I didn't respond the way he wanted. I stopped engaging, answering only practical questions about bills and schedules via text so there'd be a record. Patel filed the divorce petition. We froze the joint card, closed the secret account, moved my direct deposit to my own bank. When the fiancé finally messaged me again, he told me you were separated. I had no idea. I sent her a scanned copy of our marriage certificate and wished her luck. She replied once, a simple, "I'm so sorry." And then her engagement posts quietly disappeared, like someone had swept an entire future off a shelf. Dr. Harris helped me build a plan for leaving, step by shaky step. Leo came over with boxes. Jade labeled everything with color-coded tape. My mom cried on the phone and said, "I'm proud of you for running toward honesty, not away from marriage." Hearing that felt like breaking some generational curse I hadn't even fully named. At school, I told my principal I was going through a personal situation. She quietly rearranged my schedule so I had one free period each day, telling me to use it for breathing, paperwork, staring at the wall, or crying in my car if needed. My students noticed the new ringless groove on my finger. A few of them hugged me without asking why. The first night in my new apartment, everything smelled like fresh paint and cardboard, like possibility and loneliness mixed together. I sat on the floor with a microwave dinner, listening to the hum of my own refrigerator, staring at the blank walls and the single set of keys on the counter, half expecting Ethan to burst in and tell me I was being ridiculous, that none of this was necessary, that I was overreacting. My phone buzzed on the counter, and I finally ignored it. People always ask, when they hear the short version of my story, "How did you not know?" As if awareness is some kind of moral badge you either earn or you don't. Here's what I tell them. You can build a life with someone and still be living in the lobby while they're secretly constructing an entire penthouse above you. You see the blueprints they hand you, not the ones locked in their desk. And if you were raised, like I was, to confuse endurance with love, you'll tolerate a lot of hairline cracks before you notice the walls bulging. These days, my life is smaller on paper. 2 rooms instead of 5, 1 income instead of a combined power couple salary, holidays split between relatives instead of performed as a united front. But the space inside my chest feels bigger. I sleep through the night without wondering if a hotel receipt is going to fall out of a pocket. I drink my morning coffee at a thrift store table by the window, Watching sunlight crawl across plants I chose myself, feeling my shoulders actually drop. Sometimes I still get emails addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Cole, auto-generated ghosts of a life that technically still exists on certain forms. Sometimes I see Ethan's name pop up in mutual friends' posts and feel a ghost ache for the version of him I thought I married. Grief shows up in weird places. The grocery aisle where we used to argue about cereal, the song that played during our first dance. To anyone listening who feels that same sick knot I did, who's scrolling through statements at midnight or making excuses for bruises that aren't on your skin yet, here's what I wish someone had told me sooner. Secrets don't stay secrets, and the explosion is always worse the longer you hold the fuse. Document everything. Screenshot, print, save. Tell one safe person the whole truth. Talk to a professional who is legally or ethically obligated to be on the side of reality. Open your own account. Picture a version of your life where you are not constantly bracing for impact, and take one tiny, practical step toward her. Change a password, make a call, store a bag at a friend's place. Ending his illusion hurt, but choosing my own reality saved me.